Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Reginald the Vampire. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This is actually a very, obviously there's fun and kind of funny moments, but overall, this is kind of a very sad episode, especially the last couple minutes of this episode, really sad. Basically, I do kind of almost that hangover almost element to it, where you basically start off with Nikki's perspective from that, Sunday, and then it's here's Sarah's perspective on Sunday. Here it's Sunday again, and then you have Reginald where it's Sunday again, and kind of getting this filled-in story about who visited who and who met with who in what set of events. So you have Maurice kind of being this centerfold where all three of them have come to him for advice about the whole situation, because Maurice is trying to tell Nikki, hey, leave Reginald alone. He's got so much on his plate. Plus he has a girlfriend, which Nikki in the long run, she was fine with the whole Sarah thing. It's okay, you want to have more than one, she was probably a lot more okay with that, but for her, it's no, you kept me a secret. You not only lied to me, you lied to her. She didn't tolerate the fact it's because also if this is someone you're supposed to love, if you can't tell me the truth, you're not we're lovers, because she pours her heart out, because Nikki's made it clear, she's never really felt like this for someone before, and it's right, you toyed with her heart. The same thing for Sarah. It's he had no right doing what he was doing. At the very least, I mean, you can do that as long as everyone's on the same page. And it seems like Nikki was yo, you, me, and Sarah, that could be a thing. We could have a threesome. But it's just because he lied to both her and Sarah and weren't being honest. Sarah probably might not have been okay with the whole thing. Nikki would have been, but it's just the fact is that he kind of got the best of both worlds. He got to be with the human girl that he loves, but I think it's also because Reginald is himself stuck between both worlds. He is still so human, and that was kind of the point Maurice was trying to make to Nikki, that yes, he is so human. He can't handle all this because he's still driven by those human things. For Maurice and Nikki, I mean, especially in Nikki's case, you've been a vampire for so long, you don't remember what it's like to be human. Maurice is yeah, it's still a fresh enough thing. He can, but he's not completely driven by it. Whereas, Reggie is still so new to this. He's still a fledgling in that regard. So there's still so much of the human in him. So he's not having that element. He's not handling us like a vampire, because obviously the vampire world doesn't accept him, to the point Angela wanted him dead. Glamored his girlfriend into trying to killing him. So there's that. But also, he kind of doesn't quite fit in the human world either, so he's kind of stuck in between. Why he was trying to take advantage of, for him, it's yes, Sarah, she's the love of my life, and she makes me feel this way, but I also, Nikki, she's got, this, because I think it's also, for him, it's these are two women who are in love with me. For Reginald, I think it's right, he's always been madly in love with Sarah, but for him, it's just now, oh, all these people care about me. He's kind of feeling himself, he's flexing a little bit, and he just got caught up in it, the intoxication of drinking Nikki's blood, and because it also meant he didn't have to hunt anymore, he didn't have to take, because Maurice was oh, no Todd blood for you, and because of that, he didn't actually hunt like he was supposed to. He let everything kind of slide. He was just so caught up in the moment living that he's I might surprise you when it comes to this assessment. He was just so drunk off of it all, the love, the blood, and all of it, as he puts it, the blood and the sucking and fucking. He got so wrapped up in it. I don't think he really thought too much about the assessment, even though he said oh, I might surprise you, and maybe he was doing some training on his own, but he brushed Maurice off, and it's sad too, because obviously Nikki was doing everything she could to find Reginald. Reginald was doing everything he could to find Sarah. Sarah was doing everything she could do to find Reginald. And it's sad that things kind of played out the way it did. Because he shouldn't have done that. Especially because, to me, it was really sucky when obviously he's drinking her blood, and he's right. Even he admits I don't actually know anything about you, Nikki. And she's well, I have 222 secrets. And she opens up about a secret. And at the time, and I think this speaks volumes, Reginald gets so engrossed in the blood that he kind of that was a very heartbreaking moment when she opened up about oh yeah, me, Stanley, and the whole Abraham thing. Abraham's kind of got the ability, almost like an angel, to turn a vampire back into a human. And you thought that would have like registered him, be like, whoa, he could make people human again, but it didn't, because he was so intoxicated with the blood. He was so caught up in it. Yeah, he remembers it because Reginald's got good memory, so it was in the back of his mind. So like when the time came, he was ready to jump on it and, you know, remember that. But at the time, he was so engrossed with drinking her blood. Not even because Reggie can be a caring, sensitive guy when the time comes, and a typical Reggie would have been like, oh man, she is here pouring out a very painful memory of hers, but I'm so engrossed with drinking her blood, because for her it's like that. Stanley died going after, because it's like, yeah, Stanley was like she was like the best killer dealer ever, but the fact is he died going up against Abraham. And when the time that for her, it's like, that's the one time in my entire vampire existence I've ever been scared. And I've never been scared since, but I have never been able to forget that, like the fear and the trauma associated and the blood tear like going down her face. And she's like, I have 221 secrets. Like she opened up to him, but he wasn't really, because she's not Sarah, you know? But also like he has his reservations about reading around Sarah because like, oh, her neck and the blood and everything, especially because Sarah was spiraling too at first because she's worried about Reggie, the complexity of, oh my God, like, did I try and hurt Reggie? I would never hurt Reggie. Why would that? She's like, I don't know if I'm going to kiss him or kill him. And maybe if Reggie had taken Maurice's advice and kind of stayed away from her for like a couple days, then maybe who knows how it would have played out. There's a lot of stuff that Reggie should have done differently, but he blames Maurice. And I can see some angle of like where he's coming from, but there's also another side of me that's like, I don't see where you're coming from, because Maurice gave her that bracelet so that she would never be mind controlled by Angela. But it's like, because also you shouldn't be able to glamour the woman you love. It shouldn't be that easy for you. That's too much of an easy solution, and that turns into a sticky situation of like, you can just like, because if you. I'll use the example. That's something that comes up in Legion, and that gets gross and icky. That is a very icky situation of being able to mind control someone that you love. Like, it stops being love at that point because you have so much power and control. Like, kind of, it gets into those like uncomfortable territories of consent. We get in that weird space. So it's kind of a good thing he wasn't able to do that. So. But like Maurice was doing it more so for Angela, but maybe on some level he wanted to prevent him from getting so caught, because he never really handled the Angela thing of like, oh man, Angela sent so, but he was like, he never handled that. He never really was, because Maurice is like, right, the assessment's on the way. It's not just your life on the line, it's mine too. We need to get to this. You need to focus. Stop being so caught up in your human life. But he couldn't let that go. And the sad thing is, at the end of this episode, he walks away with nothing. He loses Sarah. He loses Nikki. Because it's like, right, you're a liar, you're a bad toy, and he was also a bad friend to Claire, because Claire's been going through a lot, because at no point, like, Reginald was kind of like, no, I don't want you to have to go through this vampirism thing, but at no point did he do what Nikki did in this episode. Nikki talked to Claire. She asked her, well, why do you want to become a vampire? And we don't have the context fully, but Nikki learned something in this episode about Claire, specifically about her mom, because Claire's exact words when Nikki were, I'm trying to become a vampire to fight evil. But it's like, we are evil, especially like, in a more biblical sense, but like we're diabolically evil, but we don't fight evil. That's not what we do. But then at her house, she smelled sulfur. She's like, what's going on? And it's like, it's something related to her mom. So she's trying to become a vampire so that she can have some supernatural foothold in the world, so she can face whatever happened to her mom. She's like, whatever it is, she's like, I want to fight that. And because like my mom is like, she seems a little different, but she's still my mom. And Nikki was going to help her. So, because I hadn't really brought it up. I think I might have referenced it here and there, but I don't think I've really focused on the bigger question of what is the supernatural world like in this? Obviously, we're starting off, it's just a vampire thing, but like Teen Wolf, the TV show, is very much like that. It started off with like, yes, the main supernatural force that you focus on quite a bit through that show are werewolves. But over the course of it, other supernaturals like kitsunes or banshees or hellhounds get introduced over the course of everything, right? So it ends up being like, yeah, it started off with wolves, and it could be the same thing here. Whatever her mom's going through, like the way Nikki was almost talking about, it almost seemed like there was some like because she talked about ghosts and hauntings and stuff like that. Like, that was probably like from just a metaphorical standpoint of everything she was dealing with, everything related to Stanley. But that might be ties more so to like some of the supernatural stuff. Like, I use Teen Wolf as an example, but like obviously Vampire Diaries or True Blood, Midnight Texas are kind of examples of like the supernatural world. Like, you know, an expansive supernatural world type of show and stuff, right? So Reginald never asked Claire why she wanted to become a vampire. Because she said, like, right, her explanation was, maybe I could have you around and not... Because he's kind of sidelined her, like, they haven't hung out. They're still... She's like, yeah, I'm practically his best friend. But they don't really hang out because Reginald's so caught up in everything else. He never once asked Claire, well... Aside from the whole thing, like, she's like, oh, I don't, like, if I'm a vampire, I don't have to be afraid anymore. He's like, never once did he ask, well, why would you be afraid? Like, why would me being around, like, make you feel better? Because he never once asked, like, what that was about. Once again, Nikki did. Because she wanted to understand, it's like, right, if you're going to go through this, you need to be prepared. So when you get older, come to me, and once you're older, like, past everything, then I will make the decision to make you a vampire. But she walks away at the end when it's all said and done, so... And it is sad because it is also the thing of Reginald, I don't know what the general rule is. Well, at least with Reginald's assessment too, when he dies, it's not just going to be Maurice. It would also be Claire that dies too, because she knows about him being a vampire. Because they haven't really, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken on this part. I don't think they've ever really gone into the details of like, humans who know about vampires, like, are they just casually allowed to be okay? I mean, Claire's fate's tied to Reginald's just like Maurice's is. So when it's all said and done, maybe he should have he definitely shouldn't have handled things the way he did, but he should have just told Sarah the truth. Like he kept lying to her, and it's like, especially considering like, she's not, obviously she let the guardian angel thing go. Like, she's like, this is the one thing I pulled away from all this. And she's like, I realize it's been a long time, but please protect me and Reginald. Like, she went back to something that she's kind of pushed away for so long. She's like, next time I'm in crisis or the next decade or whatever, and I need to, hopefully you're out there to listen to me. So I think it's just, Reginald took a lot for granted in this episode. Because obviously this episode skips over like months, because it's like, oh, like 2 months here, couple weeks here, like quite a few, like probably like, oh yeah, because I forgot in the grand scheme of thing, like the assessment had been moved up to like, wasn't it like 2 months away? So like it kept being like a lot of time ended up passing. Like we were probably, yeah, because it's like the assessment's like the next day or something like that maybe. So if I remember correctly, by the end of the episode, it's like maybe a week before the assessment or like a couple days or even just a day. I don't remember off the top of my head now. So he just took so much for granted. And it's just like, once again, you feel bad for Reginald, but I also say like he fucked up. He shouldn't have handled the situation the way he is. Maybe it is a combination of being a vampire, but also still being so fresh to it that you're still too human. But he yelled at Claire the way he did, kind of saying like he doesn't have time to kind of deal with her. She calls him an asshole, and he recognizes that. And he kind of pops off on Maurice. It's like, why'd you do what you did? Like, right, did because he was in such a bad place because he was like, because he drowned, like, he doesn't, his hunger, because it hadn't been that long since he drank from Nikki, but it's just because that's how, and that's just a natural human thing to do, is when you're stressed out, when you're worried, when you're just going through shit, what do? You eat. And that's what Reginald does. It's like, right, you kind of eat your feelings away, right? So he wants to like drink blood to kind of compensate so he doesn't have to feel the way he's feeling anymore. It's how he's going to deal with like everything. And he didn't have any blood because he hasn't been hunting. Todd was like, he was cut off from Todd. So because Maurice had told him about, right, you need to kind of control, like eat when you need to eat, not whenever you want. Like it's more so a need versus a want. You drink a lot of blood when you want to rather than when you need to. So he still hasn't gotten that under control, so. And even with the Angela, because even the Nikki thing, like, he had the opportunity to set that straight, but he didn't. He took advantage of the situation, and it's like, right, Nikki doesn't deserve that. It's like, right, regardless of, like, she was putting her heart out there. She made it clear how she felt, and he was the one not kind of meeting that, because Yes, it was more so about the blood with him. Like, yes, he loves Sarah. Like, he gave her his heart. Nikki was just like, right, it's mainly just the blood thing. It's almost like yeah, this person's my heart, and like, yeah, and we have sex and stuff. That's the great part. But I get the blood from Nikki. So that's where it's like, that's where you kind of get into that territory. Like, I don't know if they actually sleep together when he drinks her blood. I don't think so. I mean, she says like, right, we made love, but I don't know if that's all she encapsulates in making love as a vampire, or did he also have sex? Because that conversation didn't come up with Sarah when they had sex for the first time. She was like, oh, you're a lot more experienced. Like, that didn't come up conversation wise. So it's like, yeah, maybe he had sex with Nikki, but maybe he's still rough around the edges, so it's be like he's still a virgin. Or maybe it is a thing of, no, they never actually had sex, so he was technically, from a sexual standpoint, still a virgin, so either way. But like I said, him getting on Maurice at the end, saying like, right, why did you do that? Like, you fuck me up, you made me into this? Because when he went to drink from Todd, he was so angry, and Todd saying all the wrong shit made him kill Todd, and he called like the police for help or something. So they're going to stumble upon Todd's dead body, and just everything's going wrong. There is no turning back the clock. He's kind of stuck with these mistakes, and he can't use his powers to undo it, and if he did, he'd be even more of an asshole for doing it, So it's just like, he just hasn't handled things the proper way. And I think it's just, and I'm sure Maurice is probably taking that on himself, because it's like, right, he tried to tell Reginald a while back about like that, like kind of give him an idea of like all of this. But like I said, I think he was so wrapped up in his humanly and like human wants that he just didn't take in what he needed. And just, once again, he took a lot of it for granted, And like I said, he got cocky and just caught up in like all the fun of it all, and just because for him it's like, oh, having Sarah and Nikki is like, oh, it's like having one perfect woman, getting everything he needs from them, in that regard. So, and it's like, right, you made me into this. I've lost Nikki, Claire, Sarah. I have nothing, and you made me into this. You made me a murderer. Now I ended up killing Todd. You took my life away from me, making me into this. And it's just, once again, I think there is partial blame on Maurice for how he handled it. Because I think when Maurice, and this is just my interpretation, I don't know how true it is, but it feels like Maurice, and I don't know if it's that look in his eye where he just he is sad that things kind of went out the way they did, but I don't know if he purposely did all this, but maybe there was some purpose to it, because it was supposed to be a hard lesson. This was supposed to be Reginald's wake-up call that he has ignored time and time again, Maurice's warning. So he went down the extreme route of like, I needed to do this because you needed to come to your damn senses. And maybe Maurice is like, right, on some level, was I really just always doing this for Reginald? Or was it just self-preservation? Because if he dies, I die too. So is it that? Is it just a tough love situation? But part of me almost wonders, could he draw a parallel? I feel like there's a parallel you can draw between how this whole Reginald thing played out and how Reginald is basically how Maurice was when everything went down with Angela and his mom all those years ago. Like, I feel like there's a direct parallel you can make, and that's how I view it. But I don't know if Maurice, but like the look in his eyes made me think he could almost see that parallel, and I don't know if that's just me reading too much into that, And so at the end of it all, Reginald leaves and he's going to Spokane, Washington, probably to try and find Abraham to like, right, screw it all. Like, I'm just going to take my chances. Maybe Abraham will kill me, or maybe I'll get cured. Either way, maybe that's his way to kind of potentially course correct all of this, So that's going to be interesting to see where all that ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. The Todd situation, yes, he's a dick and he can kind of be of an asshole, but it's also sadder too because he was kind of obviously going through some stuff at the same time, very much like the Sarah thing of being so confused about everything, and he was almost being like, oh, like, it's nice that you actually listen to me, Reginald. Wait, come back. And then, like, he kept always showing up at Maurice's place. He's like, oh, can I come in? Maurice is like, no, that'll pass. It's like obviously like a byproduct of like Todd latching onto him from the whole, like, when he glamored him, like, hey, and gave him his blood. It's like, right, we can give it back to them. So that's why Todd is still a little like caught up in it because he tasted Maurice's blood, just like the whole Nikki and Reginald situation, which does beg the question: will Nikki, now that she's fallen out with Reginald, will she actually try and kill him now, or is she just moving past that and she's just going to leave? What's going to happen? I mean, because Sarah's going to show up to work the next day and it's like, oh no, obviously everything between her and Reginald, because she's like, yeah, I'm going to figure out all about you. But now it's like, yeah, at your job, there's a whole thing about, yeah, your boss is dead now. This sadly might push her to go like, you know what? I'm going to go back to my family. This might push her to go back to the cult-like situation she was in. Ashley is, I think that's going to be better anyway, because Ashley is super into Nikki, so maybe Nikki will stick around and maybe there could be an Ashley and Nikki situation so they can find their happiness. But obviously, Ashley's going to be on top of like, wait, there's a vampire thing going on. It's like, wait, could it be Reginald? I'm curious, will Nikki be like, yeah, Reginald's a vampire, I'm a vampire. So I don't know what to make of that, because maybe she'll bring up the fact that, yeah, Reginald's allergic to the sun might be something that Sarah drops, and then that starts finally piecing it together. She's already thinking it was Reginald, but the holy water didn't work, because that doesn't work on vampires in this universe. So that could be a piece to all of this, potentially going forward, too. But, like I said, it's kind of like, it's like, there's fun, but there's also like, this is actually a very sad episode, especially that ending, because you're like, it does leave you feeling heartbroken. You're just like, man, I just wish things had played out differently. But I'm also like, it is kind of a byproduct of his own making. But like, that's why I'm also still like, yeah, there's a part of me is like, I can see where he blamed Reginald. He needed to blame someone, because he's like, Reginald blaming Maurice. It's like, you were kind of doing this against me, and I don't know why. He's like, was I not enough? Couldn't you trust me enough to handle everything that I was going to come through in the end, but you couldn't trust me on that. You felt like I was distracted, and I think he was. So I think it's a little bit of everything, I don't think just one sole person's at fault. Like, I don't think Nikki or Sarah or Claire are at fault. Like, when it comes to the Reginald and Maurice thing, I think they both played their own parts in it, but I do feel like Reginald should take his own responsibility of he should have handled that so much better than he did. I don't think he handled that in the right way, but, we'll just have, like I said, wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.